Have you ever had that unsettling feeling that something just isn't right, but you couldn't quite explain why? As if the choices you made weren't fully yours. As if an invisible hand was guiding your behavior without your awareness. Maybe you found yourself saying yes to favors you didn't want to do, or losing arguments even when you were clearly in the right, or trusting people who later revealed a completely different face. If any of this sounds familiar, and let's be honest, it probably does, then this video was made for you. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You are being manipulated daily, not just by strangers or random ads, but by people around you. Friends, colleagues, leaders, even loved ones. They may not do it maliciously, but the effect is the same. The media, politicians, influencers, all of them know how to exploit hidden triggers in your mind. And the most dangerous part, you don't even realize it's happening. Forget hypnosis or dramatic movie-style brainwashing. The most dangerous form of manipulation is silent. It makes you believe that you're in control, that the decisions were yours, that your failures are your fault. All the while, you're being moved like a pawn across a chessboard in a game you didn't even know you were playing. And when you finally start to push back, you're hit with guilt, doubt, fear. You've been emotionally conditioned not to resist. It's no accident. It's training. Still think it doesn't apply to you. That's exactly what a skilled manipulator wants you to believe. This video won't give you comforting words or fluffy advice. What it will give you is power. Because, as Machiavelli once understood, true masters of manipulation don't need to yell or threaten. They just observe. They study your habits, your fears, your unmet emotional needs. They watch how you respond when you feel ignored, insecure, or desperate for approval, and then they act. And if you don't know yourself well enough, they will use that against you. But today, that changes. You will learn the silent rules they play by, the hidden patterns, the emotional traps, the psychological levers. And more importantly, you will learn how to see through them. You will begin to notice what you were blind to before. You will start to recognize your own emotional vulnerabilities. And for the first time, start defending your mind. Because freedom is not simply about doing whatever you want. True freedom is understanding why you want it. This is a call, a wake-up for those who are done being used. For those who've been blamed, silenced, conditioned to believe they're weak. Here, you will begin the journey of transformation. From puppet to strategist. But be warned, once you see what's really going on, you can't unsee it. So prepare yourself. What you're about to uncover may forever change how you see others, and more importantly, how you see yourself now. Let's take this one step deeper, into the subtle art of silent persuasion, and how manipulators always seem to win without ever raising their voice. You've just seen how manipulators craft emotional traps using charm, guilt, and fear. Now let's dive deeper into the space where manipulation truly takes root. Your unguarded vulnerabilities. When you feel guilty for saying no, that guilt becomes a doorway. And skilled manipulators know exactly how to walk through it. But the manipulation doesn't start with a command, it begins in silence. It starts the moment they observe your posture, the way your voice wavers, or how long you hesitate before responding. Long before a word is spoken, they are already reading you like an open book. Some are masters of charm. They smile just the right way, shower you with praise, and position themselves as someone refreshingly different from the rest. They listen attentively. They echo your values. They make you feel seen, heard, and, above all, special. But behind that warm facade lies strategy. What seems like kindness is often a transaction in disguise. Because the more good they seem, the more your natural instinct urges you to reciprocate. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to give time, energy, trust until you're no longer sure where your own boundaries lie. Others take a more somber path. They don't flatter, they suffer. They present themselves as overwhelmed, misunderstood, broken. They say things like, "No one gets me but you," or "I don't have anyone else to turn to." You become their lifeline. And with every sigh, with every carefully placed look of disappointment, they carve out a place of emotional responsibility in your life. You begin to feel as if saying no makes you cruel. But here's the twist. They rarely demand directly. Instead, they let your empathy do the work for them. You end up offering, not out of generosity, but guilt. And then there's fear, the oldest tool in the manipulator's arsenal. These manipulators paint dark futures to hold you in place. If you leave, you'll regret it. No one else will love you like I do. They don't use handcuffs, they use ideas. And ideas, once planted, can feel just as binding. You begin to doubt yourself, your worth, your strength, your right to choose. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this psychological warfare long before modern psychology gave it a name. In The Prince, he described, with chilling precision, how manipulation serves as a tool not for villains, but for those who understand power. He wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands, for all can see, but few can feel." In other words, appearances dominate perception, and manipulation thrives on appearance. It is a carefully staged performance designed to look like reality. The manipulator builds a theater around you. They hand you a role, they hand you a script, and you begin to act. But here's the terrifying part. You believe the story is your own. You don't see the strings. Because every piece of this act relies on one hidden element. Your internal gap, a wound, a craving, a vulnerability that's been quietly shaping your behavior all along. And that brings us to the next vital truth, the real reason manipulation works isn't outside of you, it's inside, hidden, unconscious. As long as that vulnerable part remains unexamined, you will continue to be manipulated and call it love, friendship, or loyalty. So what exactly is this vulnerability, and how do we finally expose it? Let's uncover that next. They feed on your vulnerabilities, and the more unconscious those gaps are, the easier you are to control. As we saw before, manipulators don't need to force their way into your life. They wait patiently, reading the unspoken language of need, guilt, and fear. And once they find the cracks in your emotional armor, they slide in unnoticed. That deep longing to be accepted, valued, and seen. It may feel like love or connection, but to a manipulator, it's an open invitation. They toss you crumbs of validation, a compliment here, a gentle nod there, and you respond with blind loyalty. You cling to their approval, convinced it's genuine. But what you're truly chasing is the feeling of worth you never fully believed you had. They say just what you want to hear, and in return, without realizing it, you begin surrendering your autonomy piece by piece. Some people, on the other hand, carry guilt like an invisible weight on their shoulders. They feel bad for saying no. They feel selfish when they prioritize themselves. They hesitate to set boundaries, believing that protecting their own needs somehow makes them unkind. From childhood, they were taught that to think of oneself was wrong, that sacrifice was noble, that being too much was shameful. So even when they sense that something is off, they don't act. They don't speak up. They say their instincts because they fear appearing cold, harsh, or ungrateful. And that's exactly where the manipulator thrives. They pose as someone who only wants what's best for you. They wrap their intentions in false concern, gently twisting your moral compass until you can't tell the difference between self-care and selfishness. Before long, they're making your decisions for you, and you're thanking them for it. Then there are those who are ruled by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten. These people will cling to anyone, even someone toxic, rather than face the silence of being by themselves. The manipulator senses this dread. They offer a counterfeit sense of safety, of permanence. But the moment you step out of line, they remind you just how easily it can be taken away. Without me, who would care about you, they imply. And the most terrifying part is, you believe it. Because your own fear had already whispered the same thing. But here's what's often overlooked. These wounds have roots. They don't come from nowhere. They are the echoes of unhealed experiences. Emotional trauma, subtle neglect, cultural conditioning passed down like old furniture. You didn't choose them, but you live with them every day. And if you don't confront them, they remain exposed open doors for anyone who knows where to knock. Machiavelli understood this with brutal clarity. The nature of peoples is variable, he wrote, and it is easy to convince them of something, but difficult to hold them in that conviction. A manipulator doesn't need to persuade you outright. They simply nest in the empty spaces where awareness is absent. They don't break down your walls. They walk through doors you didn't know were open, but you're not doomed to play this role forever. There is a way out. You don't have to remain emotionally predictable. You can learn to see your patterns, name your triggers, and seal the gaps that leave you exposed. And when you do, something powerful happens. Manipulators lose their grip. Their tricks no longer work. What once felt like loyalty transforms into self-awareness. What once felt like fear becomes clarity. On the next chapter, we will show you exactly how to build that clarity, how to forge emotional armor that can't be pierced by manipulation. But here's the truth. It's not easy. Most people say they want freedom from manipulation, but very few are willing to pay the price of brutal self-honesty. Because yes, the truth does set you free, but first it burns, and the very first illusion you must destroy is the idea that being kind, empathetic, and generous is enough to protect you. It isn't. In fact, we're not balanced with sharp awareness. Those virtues can make you an easy target. So what does emotional immunity actually look like? It's not coldness, it's not apathy, it's clarity. And the first step to building it begins here, by recognizing your emotional patterns and the triggers that keep you in the loop. Let's begin with that. The first step was recognizing your triggers. Now, it's time to break free from them. Ask yourself, honestly, what emotion makes you surrender? Is it the fear of disappointing someone you care about? The anxiety that rejection might mean you're unworthy? Or maybe it's the constant urge to keep the peace, even at the cost of your own voice. When you begin to identify what drives your reactions, something powerful shifts. You stop playing their game and start playing your own. The next move, Machiavellian in its wisdom, is to develop strategic detachment. This doesn't mean you become cold or unfeeling. It means you create emotional distance without losing empathy. You learn to observe before reacting. Not every compliment needs to be absorbed as truth. Not every tear needs an immediate solution. You begin to see patterns, how certain words pull you in, how certain tones make you jump. Instead of reacting on autopilot, you pause, you think, and in that pause, you take back control. Because that's exactly what manipulators fear the most: a thinking mind. They thrive on emotional urgency. They don't want you to reflect, they want you to react. They push you into making quick decisions based on guilt, flattery, or fear. So the most radical thing you can do is simply this: take a breath, choose your response, refuse to be rushed. Now comes a powerful tactic, one that flips the entire game. Become unpredictable. Manipulators map you, they watch. They learn your patterns. They know if they cry, you'll rush to comfort. If they flatter, your guard drops. If they press, you cave in. But when you disrupt this rhythm, you disarm them. Say no when they expect a yes. Stay silent when they're baiting you into an argument. Walk away when they think you'll chase. This throws them off balance, revealing what they've worked so hard to conceal: their true intentions. Suddenly, they can't read you, they can't use you, and that terrifies them. But unpredictability is only sustainable if it's grounded in something deeper, a solid identity. The more you know who you are, the less you need approval to feel secure. And when you stop needing to prove your worth, manipulators lose their grip. Why? Because they can no longer shape your self-image. They can't plant seeds of doubt or shift your perception to suit their story. Remember, they only win when your sense of self is fragile. But when you know yourself, truly know yourself, they're left powerless. Of course, this isn't a one-time fix. It's a lifelong discipline. Emotional immunity is a practice. It's built through through choosing discomfort over people-pleasing, through honoring your boundaries even when it shakes the room. It's built by remembering one vital truth: you owe no one anything that costs you your mental clarity. In a world full of emotional games, staying grounded, aware, and sovereign is nothing short of rebellion. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men must either be pampered or destroyed, because if they are merely offended, they will seek revenge." It's a harsh thought, but it reveals something essential. In the arena of manipulation and power, neutrality does not exist. You are either actively shaping the emotional field, or being shaped by it. But what happens when the manipulator isn't a stranger? What if they live under your roof, share your bed, or sit across from you at work? What if cutting them out isn't an option? In the next part, we'll step into the most difficult battlefield of all: manipulation in close relationships. How do you protect yourself when the person hurting you is someone you love? That answer may be the hardest one to face, but also the most liberating. It's easy to talk about manipulation when it comes from a stranger, but when it's someone close, the pain cuts deeper. We've already seen how manipulators prey on emotional needs. But when the manipulator is someone you love, a parent, a romantic partner, a childhood friend, or a boss who once gave you a chance, everything becomes more complicated. The lines blur. The emotional terrain gets harder to navigate. And what makes it so dangerous is how well it hides itself. Manipulation in close relationships doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't push you. It pulls you gently, like a tide. You don't notice until you're too far from shore. It comes dressed in affection, in care, in long-standing loyalty. And because you don't want to lose the connection, because you fear being ungrateful or disrespectful, you stay. You stay in an emotional maze where every turn seems to lead back to guilt, confusion, or obligation. Over time, that maze becomes your world. And worst of all, you stop even realizing that you're inside it. These intimate manipulators rarely lie outright. Instead, they distort. They don't shout. They imply. They don't forbid your choices, but make you feel guilty for choosing something they wouldn't. You find yourself tiptoeing around their moods. You start avoiding conflict. You anticipate their reactions before speaking. And little by little, your clarity fades. Your voice gets quieter. You forget what it felt like to act freely. You become a prisoner, not in chains, but in an emotional cage built with bricks of love, obligation, and fear. In romantic relationships, it might sound like devotion. I only do this because I love you, or without you, I'm nothing. But love that demands your obedience or erodes your independence isn't love. It's emotional blackmail wrapped in sweet words. In families, manipulation often wears the mask of tradition. You can't do this to your mother, or you owe us everything. But respect that's forced through guilt isn't genuine. It's control at work. Manipulation might come disguised as loyalty. You should be grateful, no one else would give you this chance. But gratitude that turns into an emotional debt is no longer appreciation, it's just another leash. And here's the truth. Proximity does not justify emotional violation. Love doesn't give anyone the right to mold you through fear, guilt, or pressure. But before you can break free, you have to face something deeply uncomfortable. Not every relationship that contains love is healthy. Not every person who claims to love you knows how to love without trying to possess you. Some relationships don't protect you. They prevent you from becoming who you're meant to be. So what can you do? Start by setting boundaries. Real ones. Boundaries that are clear, non-negotiable, and that don't need long-winded explanations. A quiet, firm no carries more weight than 1,000 justifications. Next, speak your truth. Expose the pattern. Say what you see. Say how it makes you feel. Say what you will no longer accept. Not to change the other person, but to reclaim your own clarity. The moment you express your reality, it becomes harder for it to be denied. And then, be ready for the storm. Because it will come. They may respond with silence, guilt trips, anger, or playing the victim. But hold your ground. The manipulator feeds on hesitation. If you waver, they will press harder. So stand firm, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. Sometimes, loving someone means walking away. It means leaving the dance. Letting them face their own darkness without using you as a crutch. Because as long as you stay trying to explain, soothe, or save them, they won't change and you will lose yourself. This kind of choice is never easy, but it is essential, because only those who break free from toxic bonds gain a new kind of vision, one that sees beyond sweet words, beyond guilt, beyond emotional illusions. But there's still one final and most important step. How do you rebuild your sense of self after years of being shaped by someone else's agenda? In the next part, we'll explore how to reconnect with your inner authority and finally live from a place of strength, awareness, and peace. To see clearly behind the mask is only the beginning now. It's time to protect your mind in a world determined to control it. With this sharper vision, we now enter the next critical phase, applying Machiavelli's strategic thinking to everyday modern life. Because make no mistake, we are surrounded by manipulation. From ads on your screen to carefully worded news, from well-meaning friends to powerful institutions, everyone wants a piece of your attention. Your belief, your loyalty, The time has come to turn the tables. Niccolo Machiavelli, didn't he write? To inspire comfort. He didn't dress his words in moral beauty or soft ideals. He wasn't interested in being admired as virtuous. His loyalty was to one thing only: raw, unfiltered reality. The type of truth most people find too cold to face. But that's exactly what makes his perspective essential today. If you want to survive and stay mentally sovereign in a time where everything is designed to sway your judgment, you must learn to think like he did, with surgical clarity, with emotion under control, and with strategy in every step. Because this is the era of influence. Social media, politics, religion, marketing, even relationships, all operate like competing narratives. And those who fail to see this aren't spared. They're simply consumed by it. Machiavelli saw human behavior as deeply predictable, not because people are stupid, but because people are emotional. Interests, fear, desire, these rule us far more than logic or ideals. He understood this, and from that understanding came power. He once wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than their hands. Everyone sees, but few touch." In other words, perception is more powerful than truth. And those who shape perception shape reality. Think about it. The one who controls the narrative influences decisions. The one who controls the image shapes belief. The one who understands your emotions can control your behavior without ever raising their voice. So, how do you protect yourself? You start by abandoning emotional autopilot. Stop reacting by habit. Stop assuming that your feelings are always right. Machiavelli did not believe in moral absolutes. He believed in context. What's noble in one situation may be foolish in another. What's honest today might be suicide tomorrow. Blind kindness, dangerous. Brutal honesty without timing. Self-sabotage, unchecked generosity, voluntary slavery. To be truly free, you must learn to play the game and play it well. Begin with observation. Read people not by what they say, but by what they do when they think no one notices. Judge not their promises, but their patterns. Behind every word is an interest. Learn to see it. Train yourself to analyze before you feel, to question before you trust, and above all, do. Not react, anticipate. Manipulators act with intention. Your best defense is to stay a step ahead. This doesn't mean becoming paranoid. It means becoming deliberate, calculated, like a chess player, not a pawn. Next, weaponize silence. One of the most common mistakes people make is oversharing emotionally. They speak too soon, explain too much, reveal their wounds to anyone who listens. The Machiavellian understands. Silence confuses, commands respect, and disrupts the manipulator's rhythm. When you do not react the way they expect, you throw off the script. And in that silence, you gain something rare. Control. Then comes the art of ambiguity. Because not every truth needs to be stated, and not every answer must be given. Machiavelli taught that those who master ambiguity gain power others can't grasp. Why? Because the unpredictable cannot be manipulated easily. When others can't read you, they cannot control you. But how exactly does one master ambiguity without losing authenticity? How do you become unreadable without becoming cold? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. How to balance strategic mystery with personal integrity, and how to remain powerful without losing your soul in the process. To see clearly behind the mask is only the beginning now. It's time to protect your mind in a world determined to control it. With this sharper vision, we now enter the next critical phase, applying Machiavelli's strategic thinking to everyday modern life. Because make no mistake, we are surrounded by manipulation. From ads on your screen to carefully worded news, from well-meaning friends to powerful institutions, everyone wants a piece of your attention, your belief, your loyalty. The time has come to turn the tables. Niccolo Machiavelli, didn't he write? To inspire comfort. He didn't dress his words in moral beauty or soft ideals. He wasn't interested in being admired as virtuous. His loyalty was to one thing only: raw, unfiltered reality. The type of truth most people find too cold to face. But that's exactly what makes his perspective essential today. If you want to survive and stay mentally sovereign in a time where everything is designed to sway your judgment, you must learn to think like he did, with surgical clarity, with emotion under control, and with strategy in every step. Because this is the era of influence. Social media, politics, religion, marketing, even relationships, all operate like competing narratives. And those who fail to see this aren't spared. They're simply consumed by it. Machiavelli saw human behavior as deeply predictable, not because people are stupid, but because people are emotional. Interests, fear, desire, these rule us far more than logic or ideals. He understood this, and from that understanding came power. He once wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than their hands. Everyone sees, but few touch." In other words, perception is more powerful than truth. And those who shape perception shape reality. Think about it. The one who controls the narrative influences decisions. The one who controls the image shapes belief. The one who understands your emotions can control your behavior without ever raising their voice. So, how do you protect yourself? You start by abandoning emotional autopilot. Stop reacting by habit. Stop assuming that your feelings are always right. Machiavelli did not believe in moral absolutes. He believed in context. What's noble in one situation may be foolish in another. What's honest today might be suicide tomorrow. Blind kindness, dangerous, brutal honesty without timing, self-sabotage, unchecked generosity, voluntary slavery. To be truly free, you must learn to play the game and play it well. Begin with observation. Read people not by what they say, but by what they do when they think no one notices. Judge not their promises, but their patterns. Behind every word is an interest. Learn to see it. Train yourself to analyze before you feel, to question before you trust. And above all, do not react, anticipate. Manipulators act with intention. Your best defense is to stay a step ahead. This doesn't mean becoming paranoid. It means becoming deliberate, calculated, like a chess player, not a pawn. Next, weaponize silence. One of the most common mistakes people make is oversharing emotionally. They speak too soon, explain too much, reveal their wounds to anyone who listens. The Machiavellian understands. Silence confuses, commands respect, and disrupts the manipulator's rhythm. When you do not react the way they expect, you throw off the script. And in that silence, you gain something rare. Control. Then comes the art of ambiguity. Because not every truth needs to be stated, and not every answer must be given. Machiavelli taught that those who master ambiguity gain power others can't grasp. Why? Because the unpredictable cannot be manipulated easily. When others can't read you, they cannot control you. But how exactly does one master ambiguity without losing authenticity? How do you become unreadable without becoming cold? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. How to balance strategic mystery with personal integrity, and how to remain powerful without losing your soul in the process.